What's going on, guys? I already introduced myself, but I'm gonna be joined here for a beat breakdown by my friend DAMI4K.
Hello.
Um,
Yeah.
so basically, we're gonna be doing a breakdown that's easy enough to follow for more beginner producers, but also make sure that if you're a more advanced or intermediate producer, that you could get some value out of it as well.
Let's get right into it.
Here's the entire melody. So first thing I have here is this super saw. Well, that's I guess what people normally call it, but the preset I'm using here are actually strings from X-Band, so I'll play those for you right now. If that seems complicated, it's kind of just in essence a simple bounce with a lot of filler notes going on. So here's how it sounds stripped down. Accidentally left this note enabled, but you get the idea. Pretty simple bounce. I'd say that supersaws are normally going to be your foundation for a swag melody because you want the melody to have a bounce of its own without the drums.
I'm trying to look at my face.
The preset I used was staccato strings up down from X-Band, and I also have it layered an octave up here. Just for some nice layering. Layering is always good in these beats. I also have this sound from Xenology, Super Saw Pluck, and one last sound from Hive. The Boogie Days preset sounds like this. And together, it all sounds like this. So that's that. I have all of these in like a little melody groove where I'm doing some low cut, and I really like to use OTT on a lot of my melodies because it kind of just gives it more presence, I'd say, and it's a nice sound. Next, I have this bell here. How I actually come up with the bell melodies is a little bit weird. I actually base it off of, I wouldn't say it's weird, but, you know, why not just use the bell? It's because I kind of like to have my bells sound spaced out, and an instrument that does that really well is strings. So I'll kind of just lay down a string to see what a nice spaced out melody would sound like, and then I just copied it over onto this bell preset, 80s bells from Xenology, put some auto pan on it. You know, you don't want everything to be right at the center of your mix. Got some more OTT on that, and then next I got this pad here from Triton, same chords as the Super Saw, just without like the same rhythmic bounce to it, just to kind of have a layer fill in space. It is the cross sweeper pad from Triton. Lastly, I have, I'll just play the pad actually real quick. Here's what it sounds like on its own. Also, another tip that I'd add is that you should try to keep the voicings of your chords close together if you can. So what I mean by that is that, see, I have this E minor 7 chord. And the next chord I have is this A minor 7. You want to keep your chords relatively simple for this style of swag. But since there's these chords are so far apart, what I did here just pitched up this G note an octave, and it keeps the voicing really consistent throughout the melody, and it's just more pleasant to listen to. Alright, lastly, I got this lead here. It's actually two sounds though. So the first one is this AX delayed from Xenology. The second one is the edge boost from Xenology. And how I come up with my lead patterns actually isn't by clicking in MIDI, or it is sometimes, but I don't have the best MIDI prowess when it comes to making leads. So what I do actually is I have my MIDI keyboard plugged in here, and what I will do is have the loop playing, have the melody playing, and then I'll just play around on my keyboard like until I find something that sounds like simple yet catchy. I think it's just like an intuitive way to come up with simple hummable leads. Lastly, what I did was stem out my beat or the stems nicely from my boy Dami. So what you're gonna want to do for that is just to leave 4 bars of space in between each layer so that your co-producer has an easy time figuring out where your stems begin and end when you export them as one MIDI file. And without further ado, I will be passing the spotlight over to my friend, Tommy.
Hello. So yeah, pretty much, I just got the loop from Tyson and routed it to track 1. Didn't do much, didn't really touch anything. I just adjusted the gain, and I wanted to just add a couple layers. So the first layer that I added was this saw from Harmless from the Carinova kit. Pretty much just the pretty much just the MIDI that Tyson sent over. And then I wanted to add another saw. This is just a regular saw with a little bit of attack. Sounds like this. These together sound like this. Just makes it sound a little bit more full. And then I added a bass line, just following the bass notes here, E and A. So I started with that. And then pretty much in between, I filled it in with notes I think would sound nice. And this is the bass line that I came up with. Yeah, and at first it might sound pretty complicated, but as I mentioned earlier, it's literally just E and A, and then notes that complement it. So this E, having an octave up, A comes back here, just another note that complements it. Yeah, that's pretty much the bass line. You'll kind of figure it out as you go. As long as you have the same notes as E and A here, your bass notes, and you follow that, you should be good. And the melody all together with my additions sound like this. Let's move on to the drums. I like to start with the snare, but I actually don't listen to the loop at all when I'm making the drums, because I want the drums to kind of have their own bounce and support itself. So I start with the snare usually. So song 2 and 4. I'll keep the metronome on so that it's easier to follow. And then I add more bounce by adding this kick. As you can see, it's like already starting to have its own rhythm. I add the shaker to fill in the gaps, just add more groove. The closed hat in between. Then I like to fill it up with little perks. Open that. Those just fill in the gaps, and it sounds like this. In terms of like mixing, it's pretty simple. Snare, I have it between -3 and 6. Kick is, I don't even know where that's going. It's just super loud. You want that to clip so that it has that impact. Shaker around -9 and 12. Everything else is, you kind of can just go off by ear. If you think it's too loud, just bring it down. One thing I like to kind of focus on is don't over mix your drums. I like to say that a lot of these drum sounds are created like this for a reason. So like the most I'd usually do is like bring up the mids, kind of drag it around on this small window here, bring up the highs, whatever. It just really depends on what you want to highlight, but I kind of like crispier sound, so I boost the highs on a lot of my perks and hi-hats, especially hi-hats and shakers, to make them stand out. I feed everything into this on my master track. Just copy these settings, add a soft clipper at the end, thank me later. This is like the master chain. Yeah, I've been using this chain for almost 2 years now, I think.
I actually
just works.
Got a new emulation of the Fruity Soft Clipper on Ableton from my friend Epsilon Beats, and I will put that on screen right now for any potential Ableton viewers. Just this, and copy that. Sounds great. So that's pretty much the beat.
Yeah, I just added a riser in the beginning.
Riser.
Literally, that's...
You can go relatively simple with the swag arrangements. Very energetic kind of genre. The arrangement is not something that you have to overthink very much.
For this beat, we just did an intro, verse, hook repeating again, 16 bar verse, and then 16 bar hook.
And that's how it's done.
Super simple.
Speaking of the birthday beat, it was actually Dami's birthday 2 days ago. So everybody comment happy belated birthday to Dami in the comments if you've made it this far.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That has been our swag tutorial, making a beat. Kind of, I don't know what I'm gonna title it. We made some beats that are swag.
We made swag. Yeah, swag beats.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for watching. We hope you learned something. Shout out Dami for joining me in this video. Everybody go check him out at DAMI4K on Instagram. He also has a YouTube channel. I don't know if he's going to be doing content anytime soon, but stay tuned for that.
No clue. No clue. Thanks for having me, Tyson.
Yes, sir. Thanks for being on. Okay.
Back to Pryme. Let's go.
Boom. Three, two. I'm Tyson.
I'm Pryme.
And this is iCarly.
iCarly.
We're totally in sync, bro.
Were you?
Thank you for joining me here today, bro. Okay.
Of course, bro.
Let's make this snappy. Okay. First question: who are your biggest inspirations of all time and currently?
All time? Damn, bro. Honestly, hold on, let me pull up the Spotify. All time, I think when I started music, I was super heavy into like Leroy, his Fuck Love albums. I was tapped into each one of them, and I was like, I guess that's like Juice WRLD, the Kid Leroy. I think that those type of sounds were like the things that I was putting into my ear in middle school and high school throughout, and that sort of developed into like a hyperpop interest, and then I got into like the Eric DOA, the Glaive, you know, the classics, all that, like the EP with Eric and Glaive. And that around that time was when I started making music. And so I always say that Eric is one of my biggest inspirations, both sonically and also like persona wise. I love when, I don't know, I've always said like I love when an artist is their true self, even on camera, and it's not like a facade or like a clear persona. And I always try to take that into whenever I'm on camera around things, like I want to be my truest self. But I think overall, my biggest inspiration, especially now, I know a lot of people know, is the JB shit. Like,
valid.
I feel like, yeah,
Oh.
I feel like no matter like who you are or how old you are, like there's at least one Justin Bieber song that you like.
Yeah, and if you say that,
Even if you don't love it,
lying.
I know, yeah, like, bro, household name and just insane talent. And I feel like he defined what it meant to be a pop star. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think
Generational.
there's just, yeah, no one, and he's still like popping off, bro. Like, that kind of longevity is, especially in the pop scene, like, you don't see it that often. So, 100%.
Undisputed GOAT, for sure. Bro, you mind if I hit a real, a costume change real quick?
Costume.
Costume
Oh
change.
shit, I didn't realize that you had production to this shit. Yeah.
Honestly, not really, but hold on. Peep this. Okay, and then the video's gonna transition. Hold on.
And then we're gonna edit. Bro, this is so funny.
Oh.
Yo! Shit!
Wait, let it focus.
Yo!
Boom.
That's
This
so
shirt's fire,
tough.
bro. The shirt is so cool. Anyway.
Oh my god, it actually, bro, you pull it off so well. I didn't like it on me,
Bro.
not gonna lie.
You designed it so well. You kidding? Who designed the shirt?
On Instagram, it's at Swagside.
At Swag Side. Shout out Swag Side.
He's the homie, bro.
Okay.
He's so fire.
Question number 2. What do you typically look for when choosing a beat? You can also base this off of the past, like the beats that are in your current discography.
Yeah. Bro, yeah, I think like, this is such a good question. I think I've described it as this way too before. Not many people ask me for advice or like what I think about. I guess I'm not really in like interacting with many people when I'm making music, but like I always say to myself, like when I hear a beat, right? The first initial feeling, you have to be impressed. Like it's gotta like perk your ears up a little bit. And then as you like lay it down into the DAW and you're playing it back, a lot of my biggest songs were on beats that spoke to me, like in a literal sense. Like when I start top lining and trying to find a melody, I almost hear the words already in my head. Like when I got the beat, this is the best example. When I got the beat for Get Some
How is Justin
in the instrumental, bro, yeah, like when I got that instrumental, I was just vibing, and then the way that Zemna laid the lead down, it almost sounded like it was saying Get Some in the background. Like it told me that. It's like so trippy.
literally
like,
spoke to you?
bro, it literally did. Like I'm not even like being like metaphorical, like this is in the literal sense. When I'm singing over the beat, I can almost hear those, like a word or a phrase, or I can almost like, I'll mumble over the beat and I'll hear that word from that little phrase. And a lot of times that'll happen on like, you know, like beats that are just really good. And then I think from there the ball starts rolling, and then one word leads to another, and then you got a verse, and then you got a chorus, and then you got a song, you know? Like a lot of times I think your greatest song is like one that will happen so naturally and organically, and you don't realize it's great. Yeah.
It kind of writes itself.
Until, yeah, exactly. Like it literally writes itself. And I think that just comes from like, yeah, beat selection and vibes and like your mental space in that time. Like I know like some beats that I sit on for a while, I'm impressed by them, but I don't hear anything until I live more life. And then I have experiences that are like, okay, my brain's telling me this beat gives me this feeling, so I can use these words. And then now I have a song off that beat, which like otherwise before I wouldn't have thought of anything. So it's like, it's just a matter of like, it's really about time and place with these beats and the feelings you have in that day, in that moment, in your environment, you know?
Amazing. Okay, next question. There's 2 more left.
Sweet.
What does your process for a song, making a song, normally look like? Or do you think you kind of answered that with your last one almost?
I sort of answered that, but I think that mainly pertains to my older songs. I think during that time in my life, like I was really riding a high on life, and it was so easy to just like make music about like pop shit, like really fun stuff, and just like not really caring about the deeper meaning and the emotions that I'm putting into the song. Like it's just really about being infatuated with someone and the vibes. But now I think my writing process has slightly changed. I mean, the stuff I have worked on right now is unreleased, but the writing I think is so much stronger, and I think it's because my process has changed. I think it's really like, man, I'm gonna have to like take a detour to explain.
Yeah.
But I had like, to be like transparent, in recent time I had a pretty bad writer's block. First time in a while where I had to take a really long break to even make new shit. And yeah, and I think that made me have to rethink like how I go about these things, because the truth is, like, I know I answered the question about how a song will write itself, but you know, that's not always the case, and sometimes you really do have to put pen to paper with these type of things, and so in those situations, that's when like the real emotion comes out, and the writing becomes really about your feelings and stuff, and it becomes more personal. And so I think now I still follow the same formula, like you throw a beat, you sort of like mumble, but I think now I'm really like typing it in a doc, and I'm like, okay, I'm really like being surgical about the word choice and the structure and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, for the most part, my writing process is still pretty standard. It's like, you know, a loose melody, loose lyrics, go back and polish it and rearrange the words and grammar and everything. But
Cool.
yeah,
Love that. Love to see people writing. It's becoming a lost art.
love writing.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Final question, bro. What would be your advice to up-and-coming musicians who want to follow a career path similar to yours?
Damn, this is crazy, dude. What the fuck?
I low-key wrote these in like 10 minutes at like 5 in the morning. I can't lie. Anyways, I'm yapping, bro.
Advice I would give to someone in a similar career path?
Somebody, like, what did I write? Musicians out there who are watching, who are interested in building a career similar to yours.
Building a career, man. I think more than anything, and I believe this to be true amongst every artist who has an audience that I've met so far, is you really have to be in love with it. You can't just be doing it because you want to be perceived a certain way. Like, you really have to want to be all about the music. Like, I think that's where it starts. And then I think getting to a point where you have an audience, it takes a really long time and a lot of patience. But I think to get there, for me, I always tell people, recording artists, like, just do a lot of covers. And oh yeah, I had an answer for this question, like when I peeped the questions. But one of the biggest things I think artists need to do is to listen to an artist who you think like shares vocal qualities that you have, and do covers of their songs. Because a lot of times when artists come onto the scene and they're very new and very fresh at songwriting and writing melodies, a lot of times people don't explore their range and they don't really know what their voice is capable of. And that was something that I had to learn as well, because like scrolling through my discography from like my first song to my most recent, my range at the start was very like, it was like here.
Right.
It was very here. I didn't explore. I stayed here. You know, now that I'm more developed a little bit, I'm able to expand, and I know what my voice can do. And, you know, because a lot of people who are starting to make music, a lot of people wouldn't say that they're singers. You just want to make music. I just want to sing on a beat, but I'm not a singer. We're not trained. So we don't know. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so.
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know, like, I wouldn't know what my voice could do until I really try and sing something that, you know, I would do Justin Bieber covers, because I'm like, wait, okay, I low-key, my voice has a certain quality that I can see from his vocals. So let me try doing some of his runs and some of his like licks and stuff. And then from that, that's ball knowledge, bro.
Yeah, there you go.
Because a lot of people, like a lot of new artists, it's very monotone, which is very normal. But to break out of that box, you need to explore and really experiment.
Amazing.
And stay consistent. And that's it. Stay consistent and take breaks, bro, when you need to. That's what I learned.
Amazing. Well, damn. I guess that's all.
Wait, no, I was gonna say,
Yo, broski, I'm not even gonna lie, bro. It's gotta be Crotigi, fam.
thank you guys for watching, and cop Tyson Beats.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Pryme himself.
Cop them beats.
Thanks so much, bro.
Cop them Pryme beats.
Cop those Pryme beats. Cop those Pryme beats. Pryme seal of approval.
Seal of approval, bro. It's Pryme co-signed beats. Get them while they're hot. No, I'm just kidding.
They're selling like hot.
No, but
cakes.
actually get them though. Actually get them. Yeah.
You might. There's a pun, and I can make it look smooth. You could even say.
Played it around
you could
it.
even say that you could get some while they're still there.
Yo,
Get some.
Nah, he wrote that down, bro. You planned that shit. Planned that shit.
I know I planned it.
What the fuck? You planned that shit, bro.
Well, unfortunately, guys, that's all the Pryme. That's all the time we have with the Pryme today. Insert sound effect.
Aww.
And we're clear.